This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome to episode number 5 of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Churko, alongside my usual sidekick and my broadcast partner in crime. Now, I say broadcast partner in fun for John Charles Macaron. So you're my broadcast partner in crime, Dominic Churko. Dom back with us after a week off last week. He took a great vacation to Barbados, to many foreign lands. That's not true, but he had the week off. Dom is back here in the fray, though, this week for Sundays with Dominic and Vito. Dominic, how are you doing?
I promise everyone I don't commit crimes.
So you're not committing crimes. You're you're just a hell of a boy and hell of a man now, too, right?
Good crimes, you know.
Okay.
The crimes that everyone commits, like running.
What are you trying to talk about? What are you trying to talk about right now? Okay. Okay, now we're cleaning it up here, okay? Because you're a class act. You really are. And we both are here on Sundays with Dominic and Vito. Now, as we record this, Michigan had a stellar first half, you could argue, right, against Notre Dame at the Big House, and was shutting down Notre Dame's offensive attack as a whole. And Michigan's ground game took over. All about the ground game. Shea had, 3-4 pass attempts all throughout the first half, and that was it. And Michigan shutting out Notre Dame as we speak here, Dom. How impressed are you with Michigan throughout the first half?
Yeah, rain-drenched game so far at the Big House. Not a lot of throwing of the ball for Michigan today. They only 3 or 4 pass attempts so far, and 13 yards passing for Shea Patterson. But the running game has looked really good. The tackles and guards are moving up at the second level. The linebackers, Cesar Ruiz and Big Mike Nwenu, are doing a good job pulling for Michigan. They're differentiating where they're going to run the ball as well and mixing up blocks and the location of where Charbonnet will start off. And Haskins as well. So they do a good job of mixing up those runs, which is very impressive and keeps them off their toes.
So Haskins...
Even when Notre Dame has men in the box, they're able to misdirect a little bit.
So Michigan is still running at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame knows it's coming in a rain-drenched game at the Big House in Ann Arbor. Weather's horrible, horrid conditions, and Michigan keeps running the football right down the throats of Notre Dame and succeeding too.
I'm glad I got I should say that I'm impressed with Josh Gaddis' play calling so far on the offensive end. Like I said, they've been mixing up the run direction so far. So it's been good to see from that front, and hopefully they continue to get it going.
So we won't know what happens on this podcast, what happens in Saturday night's big clash between Michigan and Notre Dame. Hoping for a Michigan victory, and Notre Dame we know has struggled in the past at the Big House. So Michigan, I think we're both thinking at this point, gets it done. Now, is that a signature victory for Jim Harbaugh if he does get the victory Saturday night, Tom?
Well, Vito, the interesting thing about Michigan is they haven't had a win over a top 10 team in the Jim Harbaugh era, so this is definitely a signature win for this program moving forward.
So definitive no matter what, no matter if Michigan wins by a touchdown or wins by 20 points.
Yeah, no matter what, if they win this game, it's a signature win for this program. It's a step in the right direction for Jim Harbaugh and could preserve his job.
So let's switch gears here now to a team that you think can make a comeback and win a series in the World Series. That is... At this point, you're Houston Astros. And my Houston Astros, I had them actually winning, Dom. I know, contrary to popular belief of you, I have the Astros winning the World Series in 6 games. Now, they still have a chance of doing that. Now, as we're speaking, Joe Buck, John Smoltz on the call. But anyways, Astros up in this game here, trailing 2-1 in the series so far, Dom. But you think your Astros can come back in this series? Tell my listeners, our listeners, I should say, and myself, why that is the case.
Well, real quick, I'd like to clear things up. You did have the Nationals in the World
Series. Making the Fall Classic.
And
I did a long time ago.
You picked them as well. You said Team of Destiny.
I said Team of Destiny because they have a really good chance of making the Fall Classic, and now they have, Dom.
You can't be like 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and have a public and private opinion.
Well, you know what? I have the right to. I started this podcast, so I have the right to, Dom. Okay?
Well, you have a right to.
Who does more
opinion,
podcasts here at the Detroit Sports Podcast
You could be a little bit more transparent. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, God. Am I running for president now all of a sudden? Hey, maybe one day. One day, be on the lookout for that happening. But to the World Series now. Less important, but important for the sake of this podcast, Dom, as you know. Astros, are they going to come back and win this series?
Yeah, I believe so. I think the saving grace yesterday was probably that bullpen and how good it was. You had Brad Peacock come out of the bullpen.
Peacock, I love that last
Will
name,
Harris,
baby.
Will Harris was really good. He had the curveball rolling, and Joe Smith was good as well. And then Roberto Ozuna at the back end of that bullpen. The bullpen really saved them, gave him a break yesterday. And then today, so far, Jose Urquidy has done really good, mixing pitches and, again, using all 3 pitches that he has on these national hitters, keeping them on their heels. And it looks like the momentum has changed in this series.
And now you brought up the Astros closer. Now, the Astros former assistant GM Brandon Tubman came under fire for making some comments directed towards female reporters about Roberto Osuna. Osuna, remember, has battled these domestic violence issues in the past, came under fire for that, and the Astros still went about acquiring him, and he's upgraded the back end of their pen, obviously, as a really good closer for the Stros. But the point of me bringing this up, Dominic, is to get your stance on what went down between the Astros assistant GM, and those 3 female reporters at the end of the ALCS specifically. Your stance on that, and remember, just to clear it up too, it led to the dismissal of former Astros assistant GM Brandon Tubman. Your thoughts now, Dom?
Yeah, I believe, saying how he said it to those employees who, everyone's a part of that organization. It definitely comes off as, at the very least, insensitive to what's happened. And, thank God we have Ozuna. Well, I mean, just like every other pitcher, or other player, especially in baseball, a lot of guys are replaceable. So you just say that just especially to women employees as well, on the back end of it is kind of,
Insensitive and uncalled for.
Yeah, I would say it did have, sexist implications as well.
And then Brandon Tubman, keep bringing him up. He's the assistant GM that made these comments. Did he deserve to be fired, as he was?
Well, if what was going on in the clubhouse, after those comments, what was said, it was pretty ugly. And I think it was a good thing for the Astros to move on from Tubman at this point.
So made the right move in doing so. So back to the Fall Classic and to the Nationals. Now, looking at this series from their perspective, if it does get tied up 2 games apiece, how good are the odds of the Nats still to win it? Or how much, faith do you still have in the Nats to win the series ultimately, Dom?
I think if you're going back to Houston, it makes it a lot tougher, and it's hard to beat Verlander and Cole twice. So, with that being said, they did it already with Strasburg and Scherzer. The only thing I can say about, both those pitchers is, Houston did a good job of working the pitch count, and they couldn't execute with runners in scoring position, but they did see a lot of both those pitchers, as did the Nationals now, and the Nationals did have more success off of them. But I feel like Cole made a few bad pitches against Zimmerman, and then, Soto, with the Soto home run was more of, you got to probably pitch Soto down in the zone to get him out. So it was a bad location, but, Cole is really good when he works at the top of the zone. I think he's got to work more at the top of the zone with his fastball, and work the corners instead of throwing a strike, get me over strike, which I think did hurt him a couple times in that game. So he's got to be more cognizant of, their tendencies, look at more. And I think besides those, the home runs, he wasn't horrible, and I feel like, once he sees this lineup again, he'll make the adjustments with Brent Strom, and he'll be back to his old self.
Hopefully the series goes 6 games at least, or goes the distance, for the sake of the ratings, for the sake of baseball fans such as you and I, Dominic, but also the ratings are way down. I believe Game 2 is the lowest Game 2 on record for a World Series Game 2. I mean, really bad ratings so far all around. But back to the play on the field. Your X factor for each team to win the series, Dom.
Yeah, well, the X factor for the Nationals right now is, to me, it's still Juan Soto. I think he's got to be what he was, early on in this series, and what he's been for them all year. I think both him and Anthony Rendon, they have to be X factors. But I think Soto's even more at this point because of where he hits in the lineup cleanup. It does. He's going to have there might be opportunities where they're going to pitch to Rendon more often, so Rendon's going to get the opportunity to get better hits. He's got to catch him, but I think Soto's going to have to, hit with runners in scoring position. So he's ultimately going to be their X factor for the rest of the series. But you could argue both those guys are equally, the X factors because of where Rendon hits in the lineup at third. He's going to see pitches to hit, but those are the two guys that make them roll. And also Trey Turner's got to get on base.
And he really hasn't done anything yet in this series, right? Now, how about for the Stros now? How about their X factor? Who is that?
Yeah, their X factor is Alex Bregman, another guy that really hasn't done that much in the postseason, for that matter. He does a good job of seeing pitches. He's always up. The last 2 years he's been up there in walks. But now he's got to cash in on hitting the ball, and actually doing damage for the Astros more often. But it looks like the Nationals can't get Altuve out. This top of the order has done a good job of fighting tough pitches. And now the bottom of the order, Chirino's yesterday with the home run. Correa's starting to hit.
He's got to hit better too. Him and Bregman both, right?
But it seems like they're turning it around, that lineup. So Reddick got the big RBI yesterday. So it's a lineup that's heading in the right direction.
And then Altuve's done everything hitting the baseball. I mean, he's a pure hitter, hits for singles, hits for power. Michael Brantley, also the guy that hits for contact and gets on base. And you need those hitters, it seems like, in the World Series more than you do throughout the regular season. And it seems like the Stros have those hitters more than the Nats throughout their lineup, Dom. What do you say in response to that? No? Yes? What do you think?
Yeah, they have the more proven hitters in the postseason, at least. The Nationals haven't been able to get out of the division series until this year, so there's not a lot of experience there going forward this late in October. So, naturally they're going to have, a better lineup because they've been here before. They've seen they had the plate appearances, the at-bats. And also, too, they don't really have another, they have Juan Soto and Anthony Rendon, but they really don't have like a third guy. You could say you could argue Ryan Zimmerman, he hit the home run in Game 1, that he's their third best hitter as far as maybe hitting a home runs per at bat numbers. But they don't really have that third guy that can really get them an extra base hit or a home run.
The Astros hitters are more ready for the moment. Now, a guy that has been really ready for the moment in his career, especially in the regular season, but really throughout the postseason too, is former Tigers right-handed ace, Justin Verlander. Great season. You could argue Cy Young caliber this year. If it's not Garrett Cole, it's Justin Verlander in the American League winning the Cy Young Award.
Or Charlie Morton.
But Verlander in the World Series, winless. Is that crazy to you? And does that hurt his legacy? We know he's a Hall of Famer already, but does that hurt his legacy at all, not having a World Series victory, and meaning an individual victory for himself? Obviously a championship in 2017 and can win 2 and 3 years by winning this season with the Stros. But an individual game he has yet to win in the World Series, Dom. Does that hurt his credentials as a big leaguer at the end of the day? And his legacy subsequently, too.
Well, the beauty of baseball is you don't have to have your best player do everything for you.
Other guys have to step up. It's next man up, right? All the time.
It's baseball's a different game there. It's not an individual sport, at least. It's not like a basketball where, let's say, Kobe in the fourth quarter is going to shoot, 3 for 12 or 3 for 11 in the fourth quarter. That's not damaging.
And it kills the team, right?
Right. And unlike what Verlander's done, he's had quality starts in the World Series. So he's done his job. He's been quality. He hasn't had the wins, like as he's accustomed to doing, but he's had good championship series as well against the A's and Yankees. So, he won 2 games in 2017. Against the Yankees, he was huge for the Astros. He put them over the hump to make the World Series. So his postseason career is actually pretty good.
Outside of those World Series starts, such as Game 1 of 2012, I remember it big time as a Tigers fan, unfortunately, when he allowed all those home runs to Pablo Sandoval, and the Giants just crushed him in Game 1. That was ugly and horrible to see. But what he's done throughout the previous rounds of the postseason, you're right. He led the Tigers. He really did in 2012, didn't he? To the Fall Classic. 2017 led the Astros down the stretch in the regular season once the Astros acquired him from the Tigers, but also in the playoffs in 2017 up until that World Series. Verlander got it done. So, and really he's done it this postseason too, right? Maybe not as much, but still.
What did the Tigers hit as a team in the World Series against the Giants?
Oh, it's other players. Other facets of the ball club not stepping up and getting it done in crunch time, right? When they have to.
You know, Miguel Cabrera at 20 years old was, really good for the Marlins, in the postseason. And then you're going to talk about a Cabrera with the Tigers who struggled in the World Series against the Giants. Or another, you could talk about guys that struggle. It's natural. If your numbers are as good as Altuve is or in the World Series, that's amazing. To be able to do that. To be able to do that.
13 postseason bombs leading up to the Fall Classic for himself from a 5'6" dude. I gave him credit for being 5'7" the other day. Then I looked it up. Then you looked it up and you established it with me. He's 5'6", and he's got all of that power in that bat. So impressive.
Yeah, to be able to step up your game, especially when the pitchers are better. You're going with Scherzer, who's another Hall of Famer. You're going through
Strasburg might be a Hall of Famer too one day, right?
Yeah, and
borderline already.
The third best postseason pitcher in Major League Baseball history,
and still underrated. I know he was a phenom coming out of the draft and whatnot, and came out of the scene with the huge expectations. But I think he doesn't receive enough love. Dom?
Yeah, he's had like I said, a lot of these guys have been healthy throughout the whole year. Corbin and Strasburg especially have been healthy throughout the year. Scherzer finally had a little blip, where he missed time and he came back. He struggled a little bit, but the Nationals really were the biggest part of it. Was their success has to be the pitching being healthy throughout the season, starting pitching that is, which they never really had.
So we're talking about all these guys that have to step up, have to be primetime performers. Astros and Nats have many of them. Transitioning here now to collegiate hoops and to our alma mater, Detroit Mercy, because the two guests on this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito, are basketball players on the men's basketball team at Detroit Mercy. Star sophomore guard. He won the Horizon League Freshman of the Year award. He's a preseason player of the year in the Horizon League as well. He's the son of the head coach, Mike Davis, at Detroit Mercy. His name is Antoine Davis. He is a guest on this episode, but also the son of Coach Cal. Do you know who that is, Dom? I think you might. At Kentucky. John Calipari's son, Brad Calipari, transferred as a graduate student to Detroit Mercy. So he went to school at Kentucky for 3 years, got his undergrad degree, now going for his graduate degree at Detroit Mercy with 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's a guy that shoots the three ball really well like Antoine. So they will be perhaps a dynamic duo in the backcourt. Very dynamic duo in the backcourt for Detroit Mercy this upcoming season, as the team is ineligible for the postseason, though. And because of academics and the grades and retention rate and whatnot, and from the previous regime with Bakari Alexander. But you have Antoine, Brad Calipari coming into the season. Should lead to some excitement at Callahan, lead to some points scored and some high point totals game to game for Detroit Mercy as well. So with all of that being said, I had the chance to speak with the two of them at Detroit Mercy Media Day earlier in the week. And Antoine, I asked him point blank about whether or not he is considering leaving college for the NBA draft, if that has crossed his mind yet. Find out his answer about that. But first, I talked to Brad Calipari, and we'll play that interview with Calipari, in which I also ask him about playing for his father, what his father, John Calipari, is like outside of the basketball court, what Brad has learned from his dad, both on and off the floor. And also, how about John Calipari? What does he do at home? What does he like watching? All of that and more with Brad Calipari right now. So, Brad, first and foremost, man, welcome to Detroit Mercy. How's it been so far, by the way, here as well?
It's been good. It's been a good experience so far, getting to know the team better, and then just being able to see the city and just come in every day and do what I love.
So what do you know about the city of Detroit so far?
Not much. It gets a bad rep, but, it's, from what I can tell, it's been pretty good.
How about Coach Mike Davis, your head coach here at Detroit Mercy? What do you know about him so far and the kind of coach that he is?
Well, he's been to the national championship game, Final Four. You know, if you have the capability to bring a team there, you obviously know what you're doing. And then also, when I was going through the recruiting process, my dad and I kind of talked, and I didn't know their prior relationship, but I guess they had a pretty good relationship. And you know, knowing that my dad trusts him and how he does things, you know, it gave me a little more comfortable feeling.
And your dad is kind of a big-name coach, I believe, John Calipari from Kentucky. You were there for 3 years, got your undergrad, and now here for, you have 2 years of eligibility remaining here at Detroit Mercy. But back to your dad, Coach Cal, the legendary Coach Cal. What is it like being the son of John Calipari?
You know, people think everything just comes easy, but I'm sure if all these people came and watched practice, they would see that he would be the hardest one, or I would be the one he's getting on the hardest. And, you know, there was no shortcuts, nothing was just handed to you. It's just straight work. And, you know, even if I'm working, he doesn't think I'm working hard enough. He's on my butt to keep going.
Never hard enough for him.
Yeah, exactly, never hard enough.
How intense is he in practice then? And come game day, in a game, how intense is he?
It varies, you know. Practice, he's intense. You know, some days, since he's getting a little older, you know, he's more relaxed, kind of letting more of the assistants do it and kind of the team figure it out. But when it comes game time, you know, he's full go mode. And, you know, I'm sure you've seen highlights of him going nuts on players and, you know, things he says. But, you know, it's his passion and his love for the game.
And what have you learned from him about the game of basketball?
That you got to love it, and it's a grind every day. And, you know, if you don't come to work, if you're not out working people, you won't be successful.
And now, what's he like away from the basketball floor? As a father, what is he like?
He sits in his recliner chair and watches CNN and the History Channel.
The biggest lesson that he's taught you, and I guess both as a basketball player, and then as a man as well, what has he taught you?
You know, the game will humble you, and like I was saying earlier, if you don't come to work and, you know, you're kind of just BSing your way through things, at the end of the day you still got to look at yourself in the mirror and, you know, like I said, you got to keep working every day. It's a grind. What
are the contrasting styles of your dad and then Mike Davis here at Detroit Mercy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the main thing would be defensively. I'm not sure the way Coach Davis played at Indiana or UAB, but I mean here he's playing mainly zone, and you know at UK it was a lot of man. We ran zone, I think my sophomore year when we had a lot of size, but offensively, you know, he wants to push the ball. My dad likes to push the ball up tempo. You know, they don't like to play slow. Obviously, if you get in a grinded out situation, that's how you have to play. And you know, I think they're both capable of that, and you know, they know where the game's going. And to be successful at this level or higher, you know, you have to be ahead of the game and see where it's going, which means like watching film, watching FIBA, NBA, whatever it is, whatever new styles you see coming in.
So how much basketball do you watch on a daily basis and a nightly basis? Like last night, opening night in the NBA, Lakers, Clippers, great game, the Clippers get it done. I mean, how much NBA and basketball do you take in on a daily and nightly basis?
I was only able to catch half that game. I had worked out later that night, but you know, most of the time, like I'll watch practice film, you know, to see what I can do, see what spots I need to get to, you know, if there's anything else that coach is seeing that I need to do better, or if there's anything I need to stop doing, you know, stuff like that. But you know, if I get home and there's a game on, I'll watch it, but you know, it's more than just watching it. It's more analyzing how guys I would play similar to, you know, watching what they do and how they do things.
How about the balancing act as a student athlete? What is that like for you?
It's tough. It's just a little easier as a grad student just because my classes are later in the evening. But, you know, grad students, they have more work than undergrads. But thankfully, I just have a few classes one time a week. So, you know, it's kind of more time for recovery, more time to work out and things like that.
And being an undergrad at Kentucky, of all schools, with that regiment and the athletic tradition as a basketball program, what was the balancing act like over there?
It's difficult because, you know, I was taking 15 hours per semester, and then I had 6 or 9 hours in the summer, and basically it's just year round you're working, you're doing that, and you know, it prepares you for this. So then like when you get here, it seems way easier, way lighter, and I think that's important.
Your experiences at Kentucky, what do they mean to you?
They mean a lot to me. If I didn't go there, you know, coming here like it'd be probably more of a drastic change, being able to go against guys that are lottery picks, first-round draft picks every day, Like last year, my matchup in practice every day was Tyler Hero. Like, that's a bear every day. Like, if you don't come to fight, and it's the same for everybody else, if they don't come to fight, like, you have the chance to get embarrassed if the guy you're going against came ready. So, it prepares you mentally, physically, to make sure you come prepared every day.
What are the best qualities of a blue blood program like Kentucky?
I just like the whole cultural perspective, working hard. Like last year, for instance, we had a lot of guys that worked hard. It's guys that if I'm getting in the gym, they drag somebody else with you, and so on and so on. It's just like a chain reaction. It ends up turning up 8, 9, 10 of the guys are in the gym working late at night after practice, and things like that are important because it builds chemistry with the team. Guys are getting better. They're perfecting their craft and doing stuff like that.
What do you think about this so far, Callahan Hall, and what it brings to the table?
No, it's a great place. There's a lot of tradition here. I mean, obviously the past few years, there hadn't been much, but hopefully with the talent we have coming in, what we can put together, we can change that up.
Speaking of talent, Antoine Davis, star sophomore guard. He broke Steph Curry's single-season mark for three-pointers made in a season. And now you're playing alongside him, Brad. How cool will that be? And what do you know about Antoine's game thus far as well?
No, I think it'll be really good for both of us. The way I shoot the ball, I'll open up a lot for him because it makes the defense respect either one or two of us. And, if they're playing both of us tight, it opens up for other guys. But the way he can score the ball, it doesn't really matter. If you're respecting his game, he can still get one off, But I think we complement each other well, and the way we both shoot the ball, like I said, it makes a lot of opportunities for myself, him, and everyone else that's on the court.
And you've played alongside a lot of NBA guys. So, Antoine Davis, is he an NBA player? What's your stance on that? And, if so, why?
That's not for me to decide. He has a lot of talent, but, I think he works very hard, and the way he shoots the ball and the way he can score the ball, he can do it at a very high level, and it's good for him to see and be able to go against guys like that. And just you've seen some of the games we have on the schedule, it's really going to show these teams that may be watching him or scouting him that he either does or doesn't have the capability to be up there. But at the end of the day, Antoine's a great player, and he has all the pieces.
So enough about Antoine and everybody else. Back to you and your game. What does your game consist of?
My biggest strength is shooting the ball. I can put guys in the right spot, find the open guys, play hard. But no, mainly shooting the ball.
So what are you most excited about them being here at Detroit Mercy?
Being with another Kentucky boy named Justin Miller, who just pulled up.
Very nice,
Yeah.
right? And you're building the chemistry already here at Detroit Mercy. And what has it been like playing with these guys? What's the chemistry like so far?
It's great. I think when we're on the court, all the guys are getting along together, and as practices move forward, we're passing the ball a lot better. It's more of being willing passers and not kind of catch, hold, see what I have. It's more of if you have it, you're open, swing, stuff like that, and I think that's important for the game.
So one unique thing about you that many people do not know is what? And you can think about this one too. It might be tough. So unrelated to basketball, preferably as well.
I'm vegan.
You're vegan. So when did you go vegan, by the way?
Like 3-4 weeks ago.
Wow, so it just happened. How's it been so far then?
It's been great.
Good. So beneficial thus far.
Yeah.
Well, keep it up, and best of luck this season at Detroit Mercy as well, Brad.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate the time. And Dom, that was Brad Calipari there, who is now playing for our alma mater, the University of Detroit Mercy at Callahan Hall. And guys, remember too, it is Dick Vitale Court at Callahan Hall. So really cool how Dickie V has his name on the court there. And you know what? The team is not eligible for the postseason this year, but could still make some excitement, make some thunder, make some noise, let's say, in the Horizon League, and because of largely the aforementioned Brad Calipari, but also his backcourt mate, the star sophomore guard Antoine Davis, who I talked to as well. And here is my chat with them right now. So how excited, Antoine, to start off here, how excited are you for the second season at Detroit Mercy?
I'm really excited, new group of guys, so another time to adjust to everything again, but I feel like we're picking things up a little bit better than we did last year, and we're understanding things more. But in a whole, I think we're going to be pretty good this year.
And now, what else can you achieve individually? I mean, freshman of the year last season. You broke the single-season mark for three-pointers made in a season. I talked to Brad earlier, by the way, too, good guy here, and he was talking highly of you. So what you achieved last year, and now what can you achieve this season that's grander than what you did a year ago?
Individually, just I know I'm going to be able to do what I can, whatever it takes to, for the team. But I want to be more of a leader this year and just finishing games and winning games and stuff like that. So it's more of I want to be on like a part of a team more.
And how about playing with Brad here? What are you looking forward to when it comes to that, playing with Brad?
A bunch of threes. I don't know if he's going to make them, but he might make them.
Hopefully make enough, make more than he misses, right?
Yeah.
And how about you shooting the three ball too? I mean, how big of an emphasis is that for you in your career right now?
Just been working on it my whole life for the most part. So it's always been like a major part for me, and I've been real small, so going to the basket really wasn't a strong suit for me, so it's just always been either mid-range or three-pointers.
Horizon League Preseason Player of the Year. What does that mean to you?
It means everything. I mean, something I've worked on like my whole life. I've been preparing for this moment, and just so it's a blessing, honestly, more than anything. Just the work that I put in up to this point is showing. So.
And as a team, what do you hope to achieve? I know you guys are postseason ineligible, but what would you like to achieve?
Just winning, doing what we can control for the most part, just winning the regular, doing what we can for the non-conference, getting better as a team. And then when it comes to Horizon play, we just play it out, win as much as we can, and show that we're not an 8th seed team.
Have you started thinking about playing at the next level yet and what that would be like, and when you could start entertaining the idea of leaving college for the NBA?
Just one step at a time. I'm not thinking about it at the moment, but it's a thought. I can't say that I wouldn't think about it at all, but I'm just really more focused on the team and just this season.
Let me ask you now about the NBA. I want you to put your analyst hat on really quick here. So did you watch opening night, by the way, on Tuesday night? So you watched that. Lakers and Clippers. Clippers got the W last night. But who ends up being the better team of the two in L.A.?
The Clippers, I feel like the Clippers just have a really good, and they were missing Paul George. So I feel like they're going to be even better later on with him added because they play so hard and just they play as a team. And they know what they're doing. And Kawhi is just always just going to be Kawhi. He's going to be really good. But I feel like the Lakers are going to be good as well, too. So it's just we'll see.
And the Lakers adding Anthony Davis. I mean, how big will that be for the Lakers?
That would be really big because they have a post player. And then LeBron can run more of the one and facilitate as much as worrying about scoring. So that's just always a big up. And then Kuzma being hurt, then they're going to add him. So it's going to be a really interesting season for the West Side.
You know your stuff, man. I can really tell. So how much NBA action do you watch on a nightly basis?
I try to watch it all the time, especially I watch some of the preseason games and stuff. And then I went to a game to see the Pistons when they played the Cavs, when the Cavs came up here. So I'm always watching basketball. Speaking
of the Pistons, how good are they going to be? You know, Blake Griffin's out now to start the season. They got Derrick Rose, though. So what do you think about the Pistons this season?
I think they can still make the playoffs and do something good this season. I feel like D Rose is a really good add for them, and that he's going to be, either he's starting or not, he's going to be a really good playmaker and facilitator and scoring and just giving them what they need.
Who's your team to win it all? Do you have a team right now?
I don't have a team right now, but I could see the Clippers winning it because my favorite player is on that team.
Lou Williams, yeah. Right? I remember that. Okay. So how about favorite team, though? Who is that for you?
Well, being from Bloomington, Indianapolis is like 45 minutes an hour away, and I've always been a Pacers fan for the most part and a Colts fan, too.
Antoine, I'll leave you with this. What would you like to tell the Detroit Mercy fans out there about why they should come and watch games at Callahan Hall this year?
Because we're just going to give them more. I feel like we're going to be playing hard all the time and just giving them what they want to see and just supporting us because we're going to play as hard as we can every night as much as we can.
Antoine, thanks for all the time and best of luck this season, man.
Thank you.
And Dom, that was star sophomore guard Antoine Davis for a short chat there from Detroit Mercy Media Day earlier in the week. And thanks, as usual, to PJ Gradowski, the Senior Sports Information Director at Detroit Mercy, for hooking up both of those interviews. So, Dominic, as a proud alum yourself now of the University of Detroit Mercy, what are your expectations for the squad on the surface right now, with the squad featuring, once again, very prominently, the backcourt duo of Brad Calipari, and I speak of him, too, this highly because he is eligible to play right away. It's not like he has to miss time here to start off his career at Detroit Mercy. And then, also, Antoine Davis.
Yeah, I think if you watched, the games last year, Detroit Mercy had struggles with finding another option, to counter the double teams that Antoine saw. So I feel like with, someone else that can stretch the floor like Brad Calipari, that's going to help big time, because then it alleviates the pressure, the on-ball pressure that he'll see often, and someone else that can knock down shots. They should be better this year for sure. In year 2 for, Coach Davis.
And Mike Davis is a good guy, man. I mean, he wants to be on the podcast, by the way, too. Now, I've interviewed him, in post-game press conferences, but he told me point blank, Dom, at Media Day, he wants to be on the podcast. Should we bring him on?
Absolutely. Look what he did, at Indiana. Look what he did, he's done throughout his career.
UAB, Texas Southern
as well.
Right? How about that?
Texas Southern.
So small school programs that he's built up, right?
Yeah, it'd be very good to have on the show. He has the, the pedigree, the Bob Knight pedigree as well. Under Bob Knight's tutelage. So yeah, very, very good coach over the years. And he was he's a Final Four guy too. He made the Final Four as an Indiana head basketball coach as well. So he's good to have on as far as bringing in see what he knows on the ins and outs, and obviously being part of the Detroit Mercy program. Welcome him.
And the man to replace Bob Knight in Bloomington, Indiana, was Mike Davis. Think about how difficult it was for him to take over for a legend in Bob Knight, Dom, too. And he made a Final Four with Indiana and doesn't get enough credit for doing that to this day, I believe. And for the success he had at UAB and at Texas Southern as well. And Detroit Mercy surprised for a bit to start the season last year, then had a bad downturn in their season and just kind of went to the wayside, right? Weren't as good down the stretch of the season. But in year 2, let's see them make some progress. And I think you have to believe that Mike Davis in year number 2, with Antoine Davis in year number 2, and now Brad Calipari as well, I think they're going to make some strides this season at Detroit Mercy. Now, speaking of coaches and great coaches, how about a great baseball manager getting another job in Joe Girardi? A quick hitter or two here with you, Dominic, about some recent managerial hirings in Major League Baseball. First, with the Philadelphia Phillies getting Joe Girardi. I love to call him Joe G, and love the dude and his managerial style and ways, Dom. Does he get the job done, you think, in Philly and eventually lead the Phillies and your man Bryce Harper to the promised land?
Yeah, well, I don't, I wouldn't go too far as saying Bryce Harper's my man, but, I'm going to stick up for something when I see that there's something, evidence there that, he's a good player. So first to get that out of the way. But yeah, the Phillies are going to be good again once they're healthy, and we'll see what they do in the offseason to bolster the rotation. Guys that they relied on this year, like Nick Pivetta, and Andrew McCutchen, they got, they were hurt. Zach Eflin didn't have a good year as well. So I think, they have room to grow because they were so good the year before. And McCutchen, who they added, looked good to start off. I think they didn't have the injuries; they'd be good. I think Joe Girardi is also good in the respect that he'll garner respect from his team. Gabe Kapler was kind of, what was he before he became a manager? He wasn't too much of a player.
A sexy dude, a fitness phenomenon. I mean, just fitness expert. Look at his body, Dom, and his good looks, and his skin color, composition, texture. A great looking dude.
Right.
Dom.
I don't want to badger him too much because he worked in organizations. He's still respected in the the front office,
but not as a manager.
But not as a manager.
Yeah.
So I want to say that he's still respected in that respect. He is right.
Yeah.
But Joe Girardi, he knows his X's and O's. He talks about managing personalities. When you listen to him talk, he can get the best out of his players. He knows when to go to a guy, or he has faith in a guy that you don't see. Like he had faith in Damaso Marte in the World Series with the Yankees. If they didn't have Damaso Marte, who knows what would have happened. So I feel like he knows when to go with the players to get the job done. I feel like he has that innate ability. To use, sometimes you need conventional wisdom and not analytics, but it is something. It's a good thing for the Phillies. I think they're going to be very successful over the time that he's there.
A former big league catcher who can talk the game very well, very articulate, seems like a mastermind about the game of baseball and about managing guys and leading dudes as well. And I mean, look at what he's done as a broadcaster too, right? For MLB Network, for the playoffs too, on Fox. I mean, this guy can really express his viewpoints and sound so intelligent talking about the game of baseball. And now to another former broadcaster turned manager in David Ross. Papa Ross, or Grandpa Ross, taking over the Cubs job and subsequently succeeding Joe Maddon on the north side of Chicago. What do you think about that hiring by Theo Epstein and company in Chicago, landing David Ross as the Cubs' next skipper?
I think every hire is, different in the sense that, having an inexperienced manager might help a team, or, bringing in a fresh face might help a team, depending on their personality. I think David Ross has a very, electrifying and moving personality.
Can be entertaining, too, on a broadcast, right?
Right. And I feel like there was pressure in that Cubs dugout and clubhouse to succeed. I thought the players, responding to, off-the-field issues, Ben Zobrist had the, ugly divorce. They had other issues, injury issues with Rizzo and Baez. But I feel like the pressure was there later in the season. Even guys like Jason Hayward had a really good year, maybe his best year as a Cub so far. But later in the year, when it mattered, a lot of these guys folded under pressure. And I feel like David Ross can bring back the fun into this team because, they're going to be in their prime for not too much longer. So I feel like having a guy like that can rejuvenate a sense of, pride. And he was a part of that World Series team and, bring back,
Bring the fun to the north side of Chicago, right? And the team camaraderie, right? And he can be a great leader, and we'll see how he articulates his messages, conveys his messages to the players as the manager of them now. So leading guys, we think he can be a very capable leader, though, on the north side of Chicago for the Cubs. Now, Dom, transitioning again for the last time here on this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. I would be remiss not to allow you to give your take on the Detroit Pistons coming into this season. A couple of games already played now for the Pistons, and inconsistent results. Winning Game 1, great performance by Andre Drummond, that is. Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard off the bench scored 30. So great performance in that W against the Pacers to start off the season. But then the Pistons get blown out at home in their home opener by the Atlanta Hawks of all teams, who have some young talent, Trae Young most notably, and they should be good or at least better than last year. But anyways, I digress. Dom, your time to talk about the Detroit Pistons and what you think will happen for the Pistons this season.
I think the Pistons are going to take a step out of the playoffs this year.
So let me ask you, that being said, a healthy step back, as in a significant step back from the postseason down?
Just a step back. I
Okay.
think the Bulls are better than them now. They added Sato in the offseason. They added Otto Porter in the offseason. They're much deeper in the front court. They had Young as well. They're a team that I can see them taking a step forward already with guys like, Wendell Carter, Lauri Markkanen, and Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, he's working on his mid-range game now. If he becomes a better, shooter going forward, a reliable player down the stretch, like he's capable of becoming, I feel like they don't have that wing on the outside that can match up in the fourth quarter, and I think he could give the Pistons trouble. I also think the Magic are still right there with the Pistons. It's about a toss-up, you could say, with Vucevic and, those guys. But the thing that worries me about the Pistons the two things really is they don't really have. I mean, Luke Kennard, how good is he going to be? I think, it's nice to see him improve, but especially when you have draft capital on him being, maybe as good as like a Devin Booker, comparatively like where you're taking the guy, in the first round at number 8, number 9, in that top 10 category. So you want a guy like that to be at this point, or should be a star in this league, a low-end star in this league.
But is he a low-end all-star at least? He can shoot from long distance, can stretch it extremely well.
Yeah,
he was the best Pistons performer in the playoffs last year. I know it was just 4 games and a sweep at the hands of the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Pistons were never even close in that series. But Kennard was clear-cut the best player on the floor at that point and the best scorer.
He's the best scorer, but I don't know, like, as far as on that defensive side of the ball.
Can't play D, really, right? Can't really stop
in the
perimeter players, right?
In the fourth quarter, when teams bring out their best defenses, and teams bring out their best lineups altogether, I feel like him matching up with other all-stars, he's not at that level yet.
So with other wings, he's not quick enough, fleet of foot enough to stay in front of them too, Dom, you think?
It's not about that. It's just he's not as good as some of those other wings that are up there right now. He's not as good as Chris Middleton, or he's not at that level yet where I can consistently rely on him to bring forth a good defensive effort as well, and maybe stop one of the opposing team's star when they need it, because quite frankly the Pistons don't have anyone else that is, or as even a couple notches below him. You got Tony Snell, who can make a couple threes, can he has some length on the defensive side of the ball, but I feel like that front court, they have a lot of number stuffers, guys like Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, but how good can they be against good teams when it's a guy that can get you a bucket like Tobias Harris even, someone like that.
You're naming a lot of former Piston greats here tonight. Chris Middleton, Tobias Harris, making Pistons fans cry all over the place. I mean, God, you're really being harsh and really hurting the feelings of a lot of Pistons fans, I think right now, making them all cry.
I don't think they're going to be it's close. I mean, you could say they're going to be a playoff team. You can not say, towards the bottom in the Eastern Conference for sure. Other teams like, Miami Heat, they're getting better, adding Jimmy Butler, another star that's better than, Kennard on the wing right now that can defend a little bit. So Miami's going to be tough. Another team that's going to be tough is, or at least better, and they beat them already, is Atlanta's going to be better as well. Another team that likes to speed the ball up the court. They got shooters on the wings. They got Trae Young, who, is, moving his way on up to being a star in this league. And they have, a guy like Kevin Huerter, who should take the next step as well. Sort of a Luke Kennard guy, where he doesn't, he's actually defensively maybe even at a better spot than Kennard going forward. So I feel like they're, front court, they're starting front court while being good. You have number stuffers with, Drummond and Griffin, but I feel like they're just going to miss out on the playoffs.
Dom Churko hurting the feelings of Pistons fans all across the land on this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. As we wrap up here, Dom, glad to have you back in the fray. Good stuff from you, and how did it feel for you to be back? You made it through it, Dom, once again. So 4 out of 5, you've made it through now the whole entire episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. And with that being said, great stuff once again from you, my man. And congratulations to Antoine Davis being named Horizon League Preseason Player of the Year. And best of luck to him and to Brad Calipari this season at Detroit Mercy. Adios, guys.
Good luck.